Today in our 2017 Chevrolet Silverado 1500, we're going to take a look at and also show you how to install the Firestone Ride-Rite double convoluted air helper springs for the rear axle. Part number is F2430. Now here's a look at the airbag from underneath the vehicle. As you can see, as we talked about, we have our frame connection point here and our axle connection point here. A few other features that are nice is that with the double convoluted design, we don't need a great deal of space for our airbags to work and not have to worry about them getting damaged by rubbing up against something. We only really need about a ½ inch of space all the way around our bag. Another interesting feature of the airbag is going to be the way they designed their roll crimp here at the top. With this kind of spirals around the rubber, and this will actually allow you to temporarily hang your axle for general maintenance, oil changes, fluid flushes, things like that. Now with that roll crimp design, that allows us to let the axle hang on the back of the vehicle. Your oil changes, tire rotations, things like that, we can allow that axle to hang, and that's going to be unlike a lot of other airbags out there in the market. Typically with their crimp design, if you let the axle hang, you're going to damage that airbag. Now to attach the airbag to the vehicle, we're going to have a custom set of brackets, so there's no modifications or fabrication required. We've got our upper bracket here, and you can see our lower bracket here, designed to work with what's on the truck already. It just fits around everything. And this is a heavy-duty steel. You can see it's a nice thick steel. It has the black powder coat finish, so it should stand up for a long time to come to any of the road elements that we might encounter. Now the dual inflation valves are going to allow us to air each bag up independently from one another. So what that means is if you have an off-center load, like maybe an in-bed camper or some kind of storage tank or something, if let's say the left side of the truck hangs down more than the right side, you can just add a little bit more air on that left side to get it back level. Now they're not designed to aid a poor working suspension system. If you've overloaded your truck and one side or the other is weaker, this isn't really the way you want to go. You want to fix that suspension and just use this for the off-center in-bed truckloads. Now if this is what your Silverado looks like from time to time, airbags are probably going to be a pretty good option for you. Basically what we have here is what they call vehicle sag. The rear suspension's being pushed down, whether it's from maybe an in-bed camper, maybe you've got a fifth wheel, a gooseneck, or even a bumper tow style trailer. Anytime we're putting a load in the back or on that trailer, the rear of the truck comes down. That puts a lot of unnecessary stress on this rear suspension system. It can cause premature wear and fatigue and basically shorten the life of that suspension. Now when we have sag like this, we're putting unnecessary wear and tear on the suspension itself. The leaf springs are going to build up friction, and eventually they're going to fail sooner than they should. Just for reference, the rear of the truck sitting at about 36.5 inches. Before we loaded our tank, it was at 39.25, so we've had a pretty significant drop here in the back of the vehicle. Now if we look at the front of the truck, we've also had a change here. It started off at about 36.25, it's now up to about 36.75. So we've removed some of the weight off of the front end. That gives us some less than desirable side effects in our handling, our braking, and just the overall driving characteristics of our truck. Also, when we take the weight off the front end, it does a couple things. It's going to take the weight off of these tires, so it changes the suspension geometry. So you'll typically get uneven tire wear on the outer edge. And your headlight angle, instead of being nice and flat and pointed where we're going, it also tilts up a little bit. That makes it harder to see where we're heading. Now with the Firestone airbags installed, you can see what a difference it's going to make. Same load in the back of the truck, but we have absolutely zero squat on the rear end. Now with that being the case, that's going to alleviate all of those symptoms we talked about before. Our rear suspension is now not going to be taking too much work, not going to wear out too soon. Our headlights are going to be pointing the right way. Our suspension's going to be back where it was, and we're going to return our handling and our braking characteristics. Now this load is being supported with just 50 psi in each airbag. These offer a range anywhere from 5, that's the minimum you always want to keep in your airbag, up to 100. Now you do want to keep in mind these aren't designed to increase the load handling capability of your truck. They're simply there to take a lot of the work and the stress off of that rear suspension and make sure that when we do haul what our truck's capable of, we do it safely. Now another thing I like about Firestone airbags are the customer reviews that we get are all very positive. Everybody enjoys them. They don't think it makes their ride rougher like you get out of some other suspension enhancement products. And also The ride quality improves in your truck even when it's unloaded and you've got the minimum amount of air in your bags. You're going to feel a softer, smoother ride, and it is also going to transfer into whatever you're hauling. There's several reviews mentioning that the items inside of their fifth wheel camper, maybe their dishes and the stuff they have stored, are always in really good shape when they get where they're going because those airbags are softening up the ride. Now let's take a look at some before and after footage from underneath the truck with our load in the bed. You'll see before we install the airbags, as we do the side to side, there's a lot of body roll in the truck. You can see how much our jounce bumper is moving up and down there. Now we'll go into the wider sweeping turns. You can see our truck rolls over again quite a bit each way. Now as we go through the bumps course, you'll see how much movement that we have again between the axle and the frame. And from inside of the cab, you can definitely feel it's a very rough ride. Now after we have our airbags installed, we'll do the same kind of motions. You'll see as we do the slalom side to side, we're not going to have near as much body roll. The same can be said when we enter our larger sweeping corners. As we go through the bumps course, it's much smoother. We don't have quite the jarring that we had before installing our airbags. From the driver's seat, you can definitely tell there's been a vast improvement to the suspension on our truck. It feels much smoother, and it definitely feels like you have more control. Now to begin our installation, we're going to be removing the jounce stop on both sides of the vehicle. You can see here I've removed the tire. We usually come in from this direction to do it, but this is something you can very easily do on the ground just by reaching in over your tire. You'll want a 10mm socket. We're going to have a nut right up in here. It goes into the frame. We'll get that removed. Once you've got that out, just kind of pull on that jounce bumper and it'll come out. Now where that jounce bumper came out of, we're going to be putting our upper bracket on. It's going to go right up on the frame just like that. See the oblong hole in the bottom here? Flathead bolt goes up through that. Then on top you're going to use the little collar spacer. That goes right over that bolt. Now we'll bring our bracket up to the frame. We want to make sure it goes squarely up against the frame rail. Then we'll thread our flathead bolt right up into the hole that the jounce bumper bolt came out of. Then we can use our 6mm hex bit. We'll get that snugged down. Now we'll torque our bolt down. You want to do this according to the instructions. Now we're going to pre-assemble our lower bracket and our air spring. You can see the elongated hole in the upper bracket. We want that to match up the hole in the bottom of the airbag. Then we can take our hex bolt. You can see it's got our Loctite on there. We'll get that threaded right in. Now we need to be able to move this, so we still need this adjustment. So tighten it down just enough so you still have that. Now we'll place our spring up in position. This is our combo stud. That's going to go through this larger hole. Then our alignment tab is here. That'll be positioned either in that hole or that hole, just depending on how it fits in there. And our lower bracket is going to fit right on top of the axle. You see the U-bolts that hold the spring to the axle are going to come right down through that little notch on the back and in the front there. Now we'll take one of our large U-bolts. We want to go around the back side of the spring pack towards the tire and then come forward. And both sides of that are going to go through our lower bracket there. We can take one of our locking flange nuts, thread that on. You want to do that on the front and on the back. And then I like to snug these up, leaving space before they make contact with my bracket. Now to snug these up, you'll want to use a 9/16. Now we can take our carriage bolts. Those are going to go down through the square holes. These are also going to be in the front and the back. So they hang down below our axle. Then we take our axle bracket, place that up on the carriage bolts, and then add locking flange nuts to both sides of that as well. Now I'm going to take the slack out of these, again not letting my bracket make contact with the axle yet. Now we'll snug down our U-bolt here first. Now we can torque these down again. You'll find your specifications in the instructions. Now we can snug down the nuts on our axle brackets and torque those down appropriately. You can see our parking brake cable. It's going to kind of interfere with the top of the airbag, so they've created a hole right here in the bracket. That's going to allow us to lift that up and zip tie it up and out of the way. Now we're going to raise the rear axle. You won't have to do that if your truck's still sitting on the ground, but if you've lifted it, you want to raise that axle. We want to have the combo stud go right up through the hole we talked about, the larger one. And then we want to rotate it so our alignment tab goes up in one of those two holes. Now we'll take our 3/4 inch nylon lock nut, and that's going to thread onto our combo stud. Then we're going to use a 15/16 socket, and we'll start to tighten that nut down. And once we have that snug down, you want to make sure you get it torqued properly. Now we can place our push to connect fitting on top of our airbag. We're going to use a 1/2 inch wrench to do that. You see that thread sealant that's on there. We want to make sure that we get that all the way down in the combo stud. Now you want to just make sure your airbag's positioned straight up and down. And we'll use a 9/16 inch socket, tighten up the bolt on the bottom of the bag. Now as you tighten it, it does want to move around a little bit, so be sure you hold it in position. All right, now we're ready to head over to the passenger side. We're going to repeat all of these steps there. You'll notice here on the passenger side we have used a heat shield. This is going to be provided with your kit. You just want to position it so it's between the bag and the closest point of the exhaust, which is here. It's going to offer us some protection. We won't have to worry about any heat getting to it. And the next thing we're going to do is mount our inflation valve. Now Firestone's provided us a really nice bracket. This is designed to work with just about any type of hitch, whether it's round or square. We're going to bring it up into position. I'm putting mine on this outside edge because the spare tire kind of goes around in here and I don't want any interference with my air lines. But once you pick your spot, wherever you want it, I'm going to bring the two heavy-duty zip ties around the object you're going to mount it to. Get them started here. Then of course we want to take out the slack in those. So you have those nice and tight, you'll want to trim off the excess. Now to mount our valves, we need to take the nut off. You're going to place on one of the small provided flat washers. Bring that through our bracket. Add on another small flat washer and a nut. I'll do the same thing for the other one here. Now you use a 1/2 inch socket and a wrench. You want to tighten these down. You don't have to over tighten them, but you do want them to be nice and secure. Now we're going to start running our air line up towards our airbags. As you do this, be careful not to drag the air line over any kind of sharp edges or anything. If it causes any gouges in the line, it makes it really tough to seal. We're going to do our passenger side airbag first. Now, in the kit there are little sleeves to go around the airline. We use those right here around our exhaust just to keep the heat off the line. And those will just slide right up on the airline tubing. Then you want to make sure you have a nice flush cut here on the end of the tube. Now we can put our airline right down into our fitting. You see it's going to go in until it gets to a stopping point. And then from there we need to push in just a little bit further. Then we should be able to pull back on it without it moving anywhere. Now we can use some of the provided zip ties to secure our airline. We want to keep this up and out of the way so it doesn't get hung up on anything. I typically run out of zip ties, so it's a good idea to have some extras on hand. Now we'll make a nice flush cut on this end. We're going to slide it into our inflation fitting. And then again, you'll have that little additional portion you push down. Now we'll do the same thing on the driver's side, although we're not going to need those protective sleeves. Make sure we get it zip tied off anywhere we might need to. And at that point, we're ready to fill up the bags with a little bit of air and test for leaks. Now we'll add some air to each side. And we'll give each of our fittings a good spray down. Let them rest here for a few minutes. We just want to make sure we don't have any bubbles forming. Now with no leaks detected, that's going to complete our installation of the Firestone Ride-Rite air helper springs. Part number F2430 on our 2017 Chevrolet Silverado 1500.
Thanks for watching, and click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com. And leave us a comment if you have any questions.